Namaskar. Welcome to Vatika, the Biophilic Studio at IIT Kharagpur Research Park. And we are here today for another episode of Speaking with Innovators. And we are here with a very special person today, Akib Hussein. Akib, Namaskar. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum Pranam.
I met Akib a few months back, and the first time we met, and we happened to drop into his den, I would call it, where he incubates a lot of startup ideas, a lot of youngsters, and I was pleasantly surprised and really impressed and inspired to see what he was doing. But instead of me talking about it, I think I would hand over the mic to Akib himself, because he's not only a great supporter of startups, but is also a very glib speaker and mesmerizes when he speaks.
So this is how you set the benchmarks to be very high. We've been in and around startups for the last 9 years now, having been a failed founder for the first couple of years. Trying my best in the edutech space between 16 to 19, learned the lessons the hard way. And since then to now, between 2019 to 2025 now, we've been acting as failure as a service, wherein we could actually go ahead and fail-proof models on areas that would have proven as our own Achilles heel. जहाँ हम खुद कम पाए गए थे, वहाँ हम खुद कुछ एड्रेस करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. And in data, our belief lies. So this was not done on human hunch or human biases, or is the norm in our country right now only via mentorship cycles, because there is no one size fits all in entrepreneurship. So we call it FreeFlow Ventures, and I believe we have had representation in your show before.
Oh yeah, Sourabh was here just a couple of days back, and that was, I think,
so within that.
But even before that, the one thing that I want to just mention is that I've personally myself been and continue to be a failed edtech venture for last 30 years.
Precise.
So and
may the failures continue.
Absolutely.
So what we are primarily doing is we're being able to ascertain a certain area of focus in every startup, every innovation that we work with, which is broadly bleeding that startup or bleeding that particular core team. We call it the fix the bleed approach.
Okay.
Identify it, isolate it, and then tell the team that this is the kind of incremental risk that we would want to take in an area where your core team lacks the right kind of exposure. It's ascertained on a zero equity structure.
Okay.
We don't go ahead and all dilute their cap table accesses, dilute their ability to co-own their own structures. Rather, put in caveats to our own performance, put in caveats to the fact that how does our intervention make them better traction builders, better revenue margin builders, and most importantly, better value creators. Because as and when that happens, our exits are automatically created. So just to give you a sense, if Vatika is a business model that we are primarily working with, we try identifying where Mahacharya is essentially going a little short on the core model's real perceptive value. We would isolate that, build upon that ourselves, whether it be technology, staffing, compliances, now marketing, pre-sales, channel development, or the Achilles heel of most Indian founders, access to capital. We would pick that one piece up and go up to about 85% risk on capital with regards to transition. So if it's going to cost you $100, we'll be responsible for spending $85 from our own wallet on that, and not charge you equity for it.
So we will take this, since you mentioned, take this itself as a kind of case study, and go a little deeper on that. But just before that, I definitely don't want to miss the chance to miss the opportunity to share with the audience here one of the things that we discussed when we last met, and where you talked about, you gave a beautiful example of, I think Dhoni was?
Yeah.
So that particular example itself, see, so many months later, I wasn't sure who it was, but the whole context and how you presented it was mesmerizing. So
So it's primarily a context setting reference that I really wanted founders to go by, because a lot of them are told in formats of incubation and venture building and venture studio that arrive at your problem statement, arrive at creating solutions in a linear manner, building teams. So whenever they are asked to give you a deck, which essentially talks about their value proposition or investability, they go by this cast in stone approach. कि यही है, this is what you need to follow, or else there's no alternative to it. What I think about it, and now having spent about 6 years building ventures along with super inspiring founders, I find that every experience has a contextual value to it. And this drives me back to the time when I was still at campus, a campus that's very closely connected to the research park that we are sitting in here. And we had won a World Cup, a cricket World Cup, a 50-over cricket World Cup to be very sure, in the year 2011.
So just to set the context at that juncture is just quickly, if you can share your background as because he mentions that there is an IIT Connect.
Yeah. So I did my BTech in computer science, and that was done between 2009 to 13. Worked with a couple of IT giants in the interim. So my college life was interspersed by being corporate much before it was needed. IIT Kharagpur obviously happens to be one of the alma maters, which offered me all that I know around cloud computing and ethical securities and today AI. With a pinch of responsibility, I use that word AI because that is what we were taught. That if you're really giving it out to the world, first master it. Or at least be a good student at it.
Well, I also remember very distinctly and clearly about how you learned about responsibility from your mother.
Sure. Again, all of us in a certain way have the one part of her continuing in us. It's on us to actually harness her capacities, harness her abilities, and harness her representation in the walks of life that we choose. So just to kind of take you to that example that set in the context.
But I know we'll come to that. But just since we got there, if you can just touch upon how your mother influenced, basically about this responsibility bit.
Right. So it's and to draw a contemporary alignment to it on what I do on a regular day basis, there's a lot of activities that you find yourself in, and a lot of operating system owners call it multitasking. Our first multitasker has always been the person who kind of brought us to the world with all the pain, and very interestingly, she'd understand the economics of it, she'll understand the empathy of it, and she'll overpower it with the metaphysical presence that she gives you. She's around me right now as I speak to you, because of the simple reason that I'd be reminded of the groundedness that you need to have while explaining a concept that you might think you understand better than others. And she'll be like, फला हुआ पेड़ हमेशा झुका हुआ होता है, and जब तक फले नहीं तब तक की अकड़ तो बेमायने. So the idea is if I'm fruiting right now, and if there are some fruits to be had by so-called founders who kind of get supported or get engaged with me, is it for me to remain humble and keep delivering to them, or is it about, okay, I know it all and come be part of the center of the universe apparently, which unfortunately is how the world is right now, and especially in the kind of times that we live in, that every center of power or so-called excellence or so-called education is unfortunately wanting to become that numero reference. I know it all. That defeats the purpose of execution. That defeats the purpose of education. So that is where she influences me in a much bigger way than I can ever imagine. That know your bounds of having limited reference at all times. Be humble about it. Administer to the ability that there could be somebody who teaches you in the simplest manners, simplest conversations, and remain empathetic to that core conversation. If you are not empathetic to that core conversation, you will not realize that you have a sense of godliness in front of you. So that's her inspiration in every activity, and I could connect it to academics, I could connect it to the entrepreneurship that we do, I could connect it to the investment decisions that we take. It kind of keeps us the core baseline that we are all chasing, कि कहीं तो वो pipeline exist करती है जहाँ से inspiration, benchmarks और baseline एक जगह centroid मिल जाएगा उस triangle का. वो triangle मेरे लिए मेरी माँ है. So that's
such an important aspect, as as he speaks. In fact, this is probably 4 or 5 months back that we had this conversation, and then we never kind of reconnected. This is after 6 months. We have just sat here, and we are rushed today, so we will have this will be short, but not to say that this is the last time that we are sitting to do this. I hope we will have a series, but just for all of you to understand that when this discussion came up last, we were in FreeFlow Ventures and having a free-flowing discussion.
Right.
Truly, and we had no script, we didn't know where it will go, and it landed up at that juncture where Aaquib mentioned about, and see, this is 6 months back. You have so many conversations, but this is what sticks on. Now, I still remember today that how he was talking about a particular time in his life when he was probably, some question marks, and it was at that juncture that his mother's presence kind of helped him to navigate that. This is how important, we in professional discussions and professional life, we generally have trepidation to bring these up, but it's so important.
Right. And I get back to the context that you were asking.
Dhoni.
So yeah, how can we miss Mahendra Singh Dhoni? It's just been his birthday a couple of days ago.
Oh.
So the idea was that there was this young boy, all of 19 or roughly 19, 20 at that point of time, and we were buoyed by the fact that India was winning a World Cup after 28 years, winning it for Sachin, and all of that emotions cutting across us. On 2nd of April 2011, if I'm not wrong, 10:38, one of those moments on Indian TV which has kind of found the maximum takers. It's still recorded as one of the most rerun versions on Indian TV. If we were under a rock, Bollywood made it a point that they made a movie around it, MS Dhoni, The Untold Story. But that story starts with that 6 and ends with that 6. For me, it was an awakening of the sort of very, very few proportions that I've seen similarly in life, wherein for everybody else, that was about 12 seconds of an act on cricket that won us a moment of time. But if I run it through with you again, today I run it every day for myself on various founders, various problems that these founders are solving, various entrepreneurs that they are addressing. To take you back in time, India needed 4 runs out of 11 balls.
Okay.
We were just about 1 hit away. Dhoni in his vintage style was planning to do what he did best, deposit it into the stands. And for a regular watcher, it could have remained the same. A regular viewer, he did it the way he had always done it. And that is where something sprung up. When the bowler started running, that was muscular memory turning into mechanical energy, allowing him the advanced kinetic energy to reach the bowling crease. As soon as he reached the bowling crease, he delivered the ball against air viscosity. Air viscosity is nothing but air friction. As soon as the ball encountered air friction, it developed a sense of drift velocity. Drift velocity allowed the ball to swing. The ball swung in the air, it took a pitch. As soon as it took a pitch, that was limiting friction. Limiting friction caused that delay which allowed Dhoni the involuntary reflex time to pick up his bat because of his central neural system, which had allowed him all the hours and years and decades of practice. He brought the bat down with a particular angular force. As soon as the ball hit the bat, that was inelastic collision. In an inelastic collision, almost implored Newton Chacha to come in and to teach us to every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And while Newton comes in, we always have a complement called Einstein coming in, and he came in and told us energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another. There was some part of it which was lost in heat. The ball took a refractive angle. It completed a parabolic trajectory, and the range of that 6 was 91 meters. What it meant to me was that what we had done in 6 years of science and engineering learning was contextually available to me in front of a consumer screen which was displaying a moment in cricket. Can a founder go ahead and contextualize this problem with the experiences that he or she goes through on a daily basis? If yes, then what is an investor looking out for? Repeatability, a sense of the identification of the problem, and the core ability of looking at things in a new, fresh manner. That's all that we are seeking.
But I definitely want everyone to stop there, take a breath, and bow. Of course, you've bowed so many times to that act of that 6, but to this interpretation of that act, I'm sure deserves a bow, and it also means that there is subjectivity
There is.
in everything. How you look at that particular moment of time and how
Right.
someone else does,
Absolutely.
and how you interpret that and apply it today, that inspiration into your life.
And then that's what makes founders such an interesting species, because they pick up something that you'd see as a natural outcome, and you'd be like, this is how it's supposed to be. But they'll be like, what if we flip it around? What if we see this very act in a situation of execution, not in a situation of questioning, not in a situation of complaining or grudging, and so on and so forth. Rather, see it in an act of solving it, solving for the better, solving for the incremental, solving for the perennial called time. And a lot of these founders who we have worked with have often said, "Arey, but contexts are not available across domains." It's easy for you to say this because you were targeting education as a vertical at that point of time, and you wanted to make it contemporarily appealing. I said you could do the same in reverse drug therapy. You could do the same in space tech. You could do the same in ESG solutioning. It's just that, are you wanting to stay relevant enough to the last mile customer that you eventually want to talk to, last mile stakeholder that you really want to impress upon, the idea of solving something new? And that's somewhere where I find the Indian nuance of foundership lacking, because we want to have our inspirations already guarded against the rails of whether it would sound good to a stakeholder, whether it would make sense, whether it will stand logical. If it was logical, it would have been done by now. And if it isn't enough, then your irrationality is what is going to make you fly. So sometimes allow yourself that wing. Sometimes go away from that academic jangling of your thoughts that, okay, if there isn't a validation, I shouldn't go further. Unfortunately, our education system never allowed for it.
So if we were to go away from how this whole startup ecosystem, as it is talked about today, if we were to just take ourselves and allow ourselves the chance to get away from that, and also switch to something that we promised ourselves a little while back, which was to take this as the context or a case study, the Vatika. Now we are saying that the Vatika itself, we want to take it to 1 million Vatikas in 5 years, and I know that is, as we always say, choti muh badi baat, even for the Prime Minister of the country today, or the biggest industrialist of the country today, or of the world, it is choti muh badi baat, because 1 million Vatikas in 5 years is 2,000 Vatikas a day. So that's a large number. But what drives me to believe that that is not impossible is when as we will drive out of here, we will see on the roads here, we will see small juggi type dukans on the footpath. Now they are fighting all the odds. They are fighting the legal odds, and all kinds of odds. It's illegal to put up a shop on a footpath. And yet there are millions and millions of them all over the country. And they are run by an entrepreneur who unfortunately does not see himself with that fancy name, doesn't call himself an entrepreneur, doesn't call himself a startup.
But he's no less.
He's no less. And that's what I'm trying to talk about. That is there a way that we can, and I say this because in our discussion with Suraj a couple of days back, this came up, and he mentioned that y'all are really, at least he felt that a physical infrastructure kind of was very important for the relationship management that is involved in nurturing startups or guiding startups. And I was kind of pleasantly surprised. I said, when you talk scale, people tend to get away from
digital.
All digital trend. So of course the Vatika is a digital, there is a very important digital piece and all that. Now my point is that how do we take this, start thinking about startups away from where it is stuck today, which is youngsters coming out of college and trying to do this, that is already being addressed. How do we take it to, let's say if I'm sitting in the railway station trying to catch a train. I remember there would be the Wheeler's bookstore in the railway station. And there is the ubiquitous shop for selling you all the wares and all that. Now that is also a time when ideas, the person sitting, waiting for the train, maybe 4 hours to spend, he might be. Isn't that a time where you can, some inspiration? So, can't we have startup studios
Absolutely.
everywhere, ubiquitous,
The objective answer for that is yes. And that yes combines a couple of factors. And I'm pretty sure when Suraj gave you this particular analogy, he was meaning to say that there's a lot, and I'm borrowing a phrase from a brand that is notoriously famous in India, that there's a lot that can happen over a conversation. Not necessarily coffee. It could be alternated with a lot of other things. But the idea is it will happen only when you simulate it. It would happen when there is complementarity in thought. Too much of the sameness, too much of the homogeneity in that structure, in that Vatika, if I can call it, the ubiquitous structure that you are wanting, is what I would place hold with Vatikas. The Vatikas would allow for that very unique heterogeneous diffusion to happen between two individuals, two systems, two core thoughts, two core people executing something. And because you took that railway station example, there's this use case that sprung up a couple of days ago, and as I was skimming through the Sealdah station for something, we were trying to launch a couple of sampling exercises for a few of our direct-to-consumer brands that we are supporting and are supposed to be live super soon. And we saw that there was this transparent tikya that was being sold, almost as a packaged whole, in all of these ubiquitous stores, the wheelers that you call them, and the Coxcons of the world, and the various confectionaries that run like a mom and pop shop on the stations. And there are about 23 platforms, by the way, in just Howrah, and roughly around 19 in Sealdah, 17 in Sealdah. And it was being sold at almost every 15 feet. And I just wanted to understand what is the core unit economics of this tikya? How does it open up? What does it actually feed into? I was like, basically, railway stations are a place wherein there are random wait times, wait cycles, from anything in between 15 minutes to somewhere around 6.5, 7 hours, depending on the time of the year that people are choosing to travel, seasonal delays, and so on and so forth. That tikya opens up into a transparent sheet, becoming somebody's dastarkhan. It becomes somebody else's bed, and in a situation of precipitation, it becomes their protection from the rain. And very interestingly, the production cost for that is as low as 0.7 rupees, 70 paisas. The cost at which they sell it is anywhere in between 8 rupees to 15 rupees, depending on the size of and the dimensions. And there are
sometimes I've seen it's also recycled stuff.
Absolutely. And there are no Indian manufacturers who do it. And it sells 134,000 units every day across this division. Now, if there is a team that is ubiquitously placed there to simulate mass medium ideas spread across buying capacities of everybody who's coming in and going out of that particular exit entry terminal called a railway station, or for that matter of fact, an airport, or a bus adda, or an ISBT, and so on and so forth, you're essentially creating human experiences driven commerce. Which apparently should be our strength because we are so many in number. And we are not capturing that behavior. We are waiting for digital signals for that. We are waiting to capture them on a Meta or a WhatsApp or an Instagram, wherein that's happening in front of you in live conversational nodes which you are not capturing. What if the studio does that? What if it becomes a live human library of sorts, which apparently the Vatika stands for? While you are being combined and are abounded by nature, while you have your own terrace farming and urban farming methods giving you produce, what if you combine the outputs of your own IP into the conversations that you have around the entry and exit audience noise that you are essentially going through, and create signaled products, signaled marketing comms, signaled branding compositions? You would not have to wait for those boardroom decisions to filter down or trickle down. You'd be able to create a bottom-up innovation possibility.
So all the shops, for example, are shops, and there is no room for talk there. There is only transaction.
Absolutely.
But if you see a CCD or a Starbucks, their design is in a manner where it, as you said, it fosters conversation,
simulates it,
and it really provides a space for sharing of insights and information and knowledge and wisdom or whatever. Now, there is a lot of insight, knowledge, wisdom also kind of happening in all those places. However, those places are not structured like that. I'm not saying that all of them need to be, but if there's one space, I mean, there's one space which is the waiting hall.
Right.
That's where people are waiting.
Right.
And there's all those other places where there's transaction.
Right.
But here is something where, all these, this is like a shop, a sabji mandi. All these, I mean, you can get the camera, if the camera guys can, this looks like a sabji mandi.
Right.
I mean, this could be really a stall in a railway station.
Right.
For all you know. And here we are in the middle of it.
Right.
We are talking.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, I would assume if this was going on somewhere,
right,
where two of us were sitting, not in the waiting hall,
absolutely,
but just, having a conversation and which was being shot. But here, actually, instead of being a studio inside somewhere, it's ensconced within the real world.
Real world with real conversations abounding you, with real possibilities, kind of connecting the threads of what you're trying to institute, because that is where actual magic happens. The primary magic of selling happens. The primary magic of experience happens. A conversation has a lot more to offer than just noise. And unfortunately, we have consumed ourselves because of the 9 p.m. crescendos that we have been crescendoed on our own mainstream. That's what a conversation is about, or that's what a debate is about. Just a sheer sense of experience. Somebody might need life-saving drugs on transit. Somebody might need comforting material for their sleep cycles. Somebody might need to plan for a 32-hour entertainment-filled journey.
Sure.
There are so many of these interventions that are getting lost in translation because we are not seeing that space as an active contributor to our ideas.
Sure.
This was something that we discussed, that a lot of us who are the so-called privileged within double quotes classes of the country necessarily do not want to go ahead and buy retail on railway stations because of hygiene and because of quality and consistency. And then there is a startup that surprises me from Indore and tells me, what if there's a company that just standardizes retail POSs across railway divisions in the country and calls it Yatri Cart? If you have a flip cart, why can't you have a Yatri cart? Because you're spending a lot more average time traveling than compared to surfing when taken on a unit community base.
Now imagine the food that is served today. I mean, once upon a time it was only the Rajdanis,
right?
But now it is in all the trains, and the all the elements there. When I note that if the train is departing at 5 p.m. here, then at 7 p.m. there's a guy at Durgapur who takes the order and passes it on to Dhanbad, where the food actually comes in, hot food comes in and gets delivered. So there is, so much at every.
Just massive. It's in a continuum of ideas and insights.
But what I was trying to get to was that, can we take the whole startup thing as a means of education rather than becoming a unicorn?
For sure.
So just as I was saying, and instead of having entrepreneurship courses or startup programs or things like that, if these would be just, places which are there, and so a Sahayata Kendra.
Precisely.
A Sahayata Kendra not meant for startups. True. So a Sahayata Kendra in a railway station, in a hospital, in an airport, in any place really. Think of a Sahayata Kendra, which is kind of operating every day. That is not only providing Sahayata, because that is one function, but the real function is it is capturing data.
Precisely.
Of all the kinds of Sahayata people need.
The behaviors. The sheer sense of frustration, chaos, happiness, responsiveness. Those are all insights that you are ready to spend millions on otherwise. Can I know what input will cause that sense of ecstasy in my user? And you see that at a customer care setup or a Sahayata Kendra, as you put it. And kind of simulate that similar experience with a brand. Simulate that similar experience with an offering. Simulate that similar experience with a complementary solution, which makes your journey that tad bit better next time around. and then you kind of go ahead and create that experience a little better next time around. So you're learning iteratively, and you're implementing almost on an objective laden manner, which is one of the outputs which you very rightly pointed out. I've been a great believer that there cannot be a startup course.
Yeah.
You cannot have a course structure, because the idea of a course for us has been always about compartmentalized chapter-based learning.
Mm-hmm.
Let's for an instance give ourselves a break from it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not compartmentalize startups.
Correct.
If we don't kind of allow it to flow, and I'll always plug my brand into it.
Sure.
And the ability to allow it some level of fluidity with regards, how does somebody who's learning the art of retaining markets,
Mm-hmm.
retaining consumer activity, retaining consumer intent or interest, into connecting it with technology, using technology and connecting it to compliant launches, using compliant launches to getting it to scale. These are things that cannot go in clusters or in compartments. They have to be experienced. So our very own simple Sahayata Kendra tomorrow actually turns into a studio which is strong enough, functional enough to give me 15 different grades of user input, user churn, and user retention. Now, if I'm being able to make that metric on the go, that's priceless for a founder.
Yeah.
And the sheer accreditation of the fact that you have actually gone through something like this, because again, in our education model, we believe if you have not accredited somebody or certified somebody, he or she has not necessarily gone through it. In this universe, whereas it's a direct validation of the short term and the long term of the consumer, or the value that you were talking about. So on the go physical spaces, supplementing a sense of understanding the imminent as well as the long term, is a direct result of startup interactions, which should be mandated to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Okay, you could be any age bracket, you could be offering any core product, but do you really have a primary, secondary, and a tertiary ability of connecting, of consuming, and then utilizing?
Yeah, see, you would assume
Right.
that the railway inquiry
Mm-hmm.
would have gone obsolete by now,
Right.
because it is all there. Everyone has the
It's all
phone.
there, yeah.
And you can ask whatever question.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, even today,
Mm-hmm.
even that completely monolithic kind of an inquiry where you can ask only one thing, one type of thing.
Right.
It is not a Sahayata Kendra where you can say, okay, I am having a problem in life.
Right.
Yes, that railway inquiry is not for that.
Right.
Even that one single unidimensional thing, okay, which train where, that also there is a queue.
Still has a functional
Still
utility.
has a functional utility. Yeah. I'm thinking that if there is this ubiquitous, not just in the railway station, but ubiquitous Sahayata Kendra,
Right.
how much data that would generate for startups.
Plus the kind of graded themes that you can run around it.
Yeah.
You talk contemporary, you talk culture,
Yeah.
you talk absorption and behavior, you talk technology, because what I see around myself here is not just an ability to immerse myself in nature. I also see a lot of tech around me.
Yeah,
I also see the ability of this tech finding takers in the long run. And then for them to believe that there could be a high processing system sitting here, processing my data input,
Yeah.
converting it
That's-
into a language model,
Absolutely.
and eventually giving me a foundational model which is so unique to India. We've been chasing this
Absolutely.
so recently and then a couple of our contemporary startups actually got that tender from the government of India that go ahead and build the India model.
Mhm.
Boss, you did not have to do that. You could have turned it into a decentralized source of aggregation, wherein languages, wherein interactions, behaviors, the frustrations that we just mentioned would have turned you into a consumer agentic AI ecosystem,
Yeah.
as fresh and as diverse as anywhere else on the globe. And it could then be used as the most heterogeneously trained data point on earth.
Absolutely. So if we have five, even templated 5-minute or 10-minute
Absolutely.
conversations, people have the ability or the opportunity to come in and ask for Sahayata
Right.
on anything and everything.
Right.
But it's not in a counseling center, not, it's just a fun place.
While being retail friendly.
Retail friendly.
So you pick up merchandise, you pick up your Loki, you pick up your Dhania, and by the time you're getting out of it, you also get your life-saving drug.
Absolutely.
So,
No, and,
Yeah,
and life-saving drug, as in, I'm sure you're the kind of double meaning is there. It's the
Right.
drug, as in the like whatever
The-
could be the problem in your life.
What feeds your
Yeah,
soul?
feeds
What
your soul.
feeds your
So you ask, you have a conversation,
Absolutely.
5-10 minute conversation, which gets recorded, and that gets, that provides the model. So I mean, it is not while Meta and Amazon and Google are trying to analyze all that is being put into the digital system, it's missing out on this real life, stuff that is happening.
And then that's where you see, they all talk about conversion ratios. The conversion ratio on human response to digital footprints is still very abysmal on a global footprint layer. We as a country of 1.4 billion plus have this unique opportunity of giving the world a sense of where is your conversion ratio going to find better than 20% acceptance. And these Vatikas become a cell for that. These startup-y conversations, which is starting up for yourself, starting up for your community, starting up for your neighborhood, starting up for that transactional business, or starting up for that last mile impact that you really want to create for the problem that you have identified. Across these grades of starting up filters that we kind of create in schools, in campuses, in institutions, in GCCs, in SEZs, in hotels, it is going to drive the next age of information, which is personal, which deserves more hyper activated solutioning, and yet uses technology in the most optimized manner possible. Let's not burn any more server cycles that we really need to burn. Save a little bit of our own earth on that particular, and then see how it kind of connects from that unit humble conversation, and it takes dimensions of global warming.
Yeah.
So the idea is a startup has to see the 7 stages of evolution in this particular Vatika, if I can put it that way. And that's possibly one of those reasons that that spaces post the pandemic have all the more greater acceptance, because we experience differences, we experience distance, we kind of experience the fact that when remoteness to you is a mandate, you realize the importance of the peer.
Yeah.
And then that is what you're creating within these Vatikas, the pure ability to heal for education, heal for nuance, heal for solutions, and heal for innovation.
So just a couple of days back, I mean, last 2 days, this is here in Kolkata. The IIT Research Park is in Kolkata, although it is IIT Kharagpur Research Park, but it is in Kolkata, New Town. But we were in Kharagpur itself last couple of days and really discussing ways, because the new director who's come in and taken responsibility really wants to focus on student wellness, campus development, social and spiritual and individual and all that kind of an overall wellness, holistic wellness. And we were discussing all this, and it came up to, the idea about setting up a studio to really, that we used to have chedis. I think by the time we all came in, it had changed, but just the canteen is the place where people kind of socialize and all that. Now that itself in today's day and age, it has got converted into most of the socialization on the screen. But there's nothing wrong with that. But how do we bring these together is if
how
you
do we
have
give
more,
it a face?
if you have more of these. So there was a decision to set up by the 18th of August. Today we are on 10th of July, and by 18th of August, which is the foundation day and where the Platinum Jubilee celebrations are going to happen, to set up a biophilic studio as a television studio kind of thing.
Okay.
So where, and so we need to look for space. Of course, I see it not just in one space in the Gymkhana or the academic building, but ultimately
It's a
that's the
distribution.
canteen. That's, that there needs to be a space everywhere. And whatever is being discussed in the canteen, all the fun, all the informal discussion, if just like the CC cameras, they can become ambient cameras of sort, which is capturing the ambience in a certain time of day or in a certain season of the year. The examination season, the placement season, the entrepreneurship season, the fest season, where or the sheer fun of seeing, the sheer joy of seeing younger batches coming in with a lot of aspirations in their eyes and saying, this was my dream campus to be part of. Yeah,
and I'm here.
And see, it's not when we say ambient camera. What the CC camera does is that it is prying onto you.
Right.
But on the contrary, this could be something where you can, on your choice, go off camera.
Yes.
And whenever you want, it's always there. You come on camera and kind of get your idea captured,
Right.
and there it is. AI and everything, language models pick it up, and then it connects it to
Right. all the objectives.
that
Right.
is.
In fact, I and Suraj would have been discussing this way back in 2019. That what if your ambient spaces start having a dialogue with you? And we call that product dialogue. We couldn't necessarily scale it to the degree that we really wanted to, because the technology that was driving it was becoming obsolete. It was called Beacon at that point of time. It used to have BLE signals, Bluetooth light emitting devices. Our devices became a lot more smarter. But the idea was, and this is something again to the railway station ubiquitous reference that we were talking about. What if the store had an ability to excite your presence inwards? And I could replace that store from being just a standalone store or a canteen in a campus to something in a multi-story mall or an advanced marketing setup, wherein you want a certain brand to have the ability to excite the nuance of an individual.
Sure.
What if your walls are talking to him?
Yeah.
What if there is an engagement and an effort from the brand, and a very genuine one at that, beyond the regular sense of almost pirating on the levels of disclosure that the individual really wants to give you? It kind of understands you, makes it a little more conducive, safe room of sorts, especially for the times that we live in again. Feels comfortable for us to vent out, feels comfortable for us to really ideate and let go, let loose the horses of your own imagination, and sometimes just allows you to be serene and poetic.
Yeah.
And across all these 3 degrees of metaphysical possibilities to yourself, you're being able to contribute to a final objective, and which is making you complete. Almost like a year-end book or a batch-end book, which captures you through your emotions through these journeys.
Right.
While you came out with a product which was you, not necessarily the transaction, but the you called the product. So that's something that I think 18th of August could be very, very pioneering in this time around by having.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when we talk about the Million Vatika network, we really think of it as in the metaphor of the fly on the wall.
I can understand.
It is the fly on the wall which is just out there for everyone. For everyone. But with a slight difference that it's not just sneaking in and on you. It's not that. It's out there everywhere. For you. When you want to, you can just kind of hop in and do your stuff.
And as a stakeholder who's just out of this perspective of using the fly on the wall, for him or her or for that organization, this is the spec persona that you really have. This is how he behaves. This is where he or she responds. This is where she goes over and above just being a professional, a student, a consumer, and so on and so forth. This is the real persona that you really want to cut out.
So this is it. It's getting interesting, but I have to run today. Then and would have loved to continue this, but we will. But I would run today with the kind of assignment, I would say, because that's what we talked about. That now that we have discussed this, and you kind of plunged into it by saying that we could think of what is that element in the context of the Vatika, let's say, if you have to scale this up, and what is it that, so next when we meet, and we will continue this discussion, let's say, focusing on that, what is it that, how, and that would help, I think, the audience and everyone to understand how FreeFlow works through this case study. And we will discuss how FreeFlow can come in and take this as an example and find out where the real gap is, and through that there is possibly a reality show out here on how what Akib is doing with FreeFlow Ventures and what Karmyog is doing with the idea of the Vatikas and the Million Vatika aspiration of a Million Vatika network. How does it match? And if, first of all, there is a reality show potential.
Absolutely.
And also a potential for all of you to jump in and with your ideas as this emerges and
solve for
become
Bharat.
part. Yeah, solve for Bharat.
Solve for Bharat. And then for once, we don't have to go westwards and buy a license to design our own reality store. Show. It'll be something that the world would want to license.
Oh,
out.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And the name would also not have to be a Western name like.
Right.
I'm
and
not,
in a tank.
yeah.
In some kind of a tank. Right.
Because
Rather, we'll create Vatikas.
Yeah, I just think because I'm just thinking of Aaquib,
Right.
one of the boys who came from a village to our ashram a few days back and is working. Now, what does that tank mean to him? It doesn't ring any bell. He doesn't understand.
There's no connection.
Yeah, if I talk to him, explain 1 hour, he will still not identify with it.
True.
And we have to, if the Solve for Bharat has to work, then it has to work for Aaquib.
Absolutely.
And how does he see himself,
Evolving
aspiring
with that journey.
Yeah, aspiring to be a startup, without even using that word, perhaps.
Absolutely. From just being consumer Aaquib to actually turning into creator Aaquib.
Yeah, not
And
only
that-
consumer.
and then
I think he's today not even a consumer because the very little. The whole point is about if you think the policies, despite having so many positive-looking policies, we still have something called minimum wages.
Right.
And we still have policies and laws and regulations around. I think that is our shame.
For sure.
If we can take that as our shame and render the concept of minimum wages obsolete in this nation through the idea of startups, what is being called startups, if the startup ecosystem can render minimum wages concept obsolete from this country, then probably
Breed a sense of ownership.
Yeah.
Distributed ownership.
Yeah.
Right. Makes sense. The reality show is loading.
Okay.
So, let's do it together.
So much for today. I think we had a great time. I hope you had a great time listening to all this, and must end by saying, to be continued.